In today's video, we're going to be doing a tier list for Sung Jinwoo's weapons, basing it mostly on the meta. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Of course, as always, if you haven't seen my character video, make sure you check it out because I make all my incorrect decisions and opinions in that video as well. And you're not going to want to miss that. This is not what I wanted to see, but also make sure that you support if you're not currently supporting. I do have codes to give out, so all you have to do is go to the link down below in the description and you will see that as well there. All right, so let's get back to it. This is not okay. There we go. So quick thing on tier list. Firstly, again, I'm not really expecting big shifts of any of this stuff really right now, so I feel pretty comfortable with the placements. I will be considering all these weapons at max investment and usefulness, of course. So results will vary based on how much you have these weapons invested in, duplicates, etc. Also, and I'll explain on a per weapon basis kind of where I think some of this stuff goes, but I think a lot of it is just power creep or pretty straightforward, and I think you'll mostly understand and agree. But I'm not really gonna, last thing, I'm not going to cover the R weapons. I'm not really going to cover the SRs either. I don't really, like, some of the SRs are solid, like the Radiru family bow, the Orb of Avarice, the West Wind. Those are all solid weapons that I think are usable early game. There's a couple more in here, honestly, that I think are okay. But those are ones I'm not really going to bother ranking. Just quick note, if you want to just throw them somewhere, B tier, I think it's fine. All right. So we're going to just go in order here. So Demon King Daggers, SS, easy. Demon King Daggers is legit. Like, that weapon is ridiculous. The damage output of it is kind of crazy. Also, in my opinion, my favorite thing about it is this effect right here. All attacks out of bonus instance of concentrated lightning. When the maximum number of instances has been reached, the lightning rush effect is applied and the concentrated lightning effect is removed. So lightning rush, when the user uses cackling thunder, it consumes one instance and increases skill damage by 50% in infinite duration. Also, it has other things in here. Increase the damage of cackling thunder proportional to Sung's attack stat, increases the damage of cackling thunder by 5% for every 10 points up to 150, you know, in conjunction with the attack stat of Sung. I can hardly hear myself, so I'm kind of tripping over words here. But a weapon that just does immense damage quite literally all the time, and you do need to invest, again, if it wasn't clear, in Sung Jinwoo's attack stat to bring out the most of it, but that's perfectly fine. All right, so longsword, I think longsword is pretty good. However, I think, for the record, all of them need a certain number of dupes. Some need 1, some need 3, some need 5. I think this needs, what was it, the 3rd dupe, where it becomes unrestricted, where it can just kind of get that circle all the time. Maybe that's the 4th or 5th dupe, but regardless, I think it's really strong. I think it's a little bit worse now than it was, just simply because we have a new weapon to kind of replace it as the primary ally to the wind weapon here. And the thing is that Plum Sword was oftentimes stealing that spot anyway. So speaking of Plum Sword, it is next on our list, and it's one of those weapons that's just been in the game for so long, and it's been in since launch, early access, but it just doesn't age out because it's a support weapon now. Like, it does really good damage still, but the supporting attributes of it, the amplifying draw, being able to trigger that with whatever combination or skill you want is pretty insane. And the crit damage rate, all that stuff, it's a weapon that I'm not sure how they get out of the meta. Like, when they decide it's time to kick Plum Sword out of the meta, the only real thing is to nerf, which they're not going to do, or just make a weapon that's the same element that's so oppressively good that it'll, you know, kind of kick it out. But one thing they have done to kind of kick it out of the meta is, like I said, a lot of times you would have combinations where Plum Sword is paired with another primary weapon. For example, these two together is an extremely strong combination, the dagger and Plum Sword. But I think now you can do things like this and get better value, like just those two together instead of Plum Sword in there. Now, that's not to say Plum Sword isn't still extremely valuable, because it is, but I think they're making combinations work better together than just saying, oh, let me put this crit weapon here on this other slot. And maybe you still peak a little bit higher, but you don't have the full synergy effectiveness that you would with some of this stuff, like the fire combination. Like the fire, like fan, or excuse me, the fan's really good, but the bow is good with the Plum Sword too. But like, I think the fan and bow together is just extremely strong. Quarterstaff, insane DPS weapon, also goes there. And you know, one thing you'll see here is that the hardest hitting weapon for an element will just automatically be at least S+. The fan's kind of technical, and I can see where that would turn some people off, but I also have to rate the fan pretty highly because of, one, I think the meta relevance, right? I think the meta relevance is important. Secondly, the heavy break on there is kind of nuts. And then lastly, fever is ridiculous, right? So high fever, jinwoo's fire damage increases by 50% when he hits a target with high fever. The user regains 10% of their MP one time when they hit a target with the high fever effect applied. Duration is 8 seconds, stacks up to once. Fire demon triggers down here. Increase the critical hit damage of the user's fire core skill by 120%, which ding, ding, ding. Hello. Both of these fire weapons can do that very well. When the user uses their fire basic skill, they gain super armor as well. So just like ridiculous weapon overall. The user's core gauge starts out charged to 100% when they enter a stage. Ridiculous. So I think it's pretty straightforward that this one deserves to be in that top tier. So that's where we're going to place it. This bad boy is ridiculous too. I'm taking the cop out way and like putting everything in SS, aren't I? But the new weapon is ridiculous too. It just does so much damage. Like the wind combo is ridiculous. What's it called? Stormbringer. There it is. It doesn't trigger a crit, but it increases his damage. And then look what it does here. Sung's precision decreases by 24. Attack and precision increase by nearly 1% per 10 points of strength, up to 24%. So it kind of gives you a little bit less, but then gives it back to you, right? If Sung's strength stat is 300 or more, the effect changes to awakened, which you need 300 or more to get the most out of the daggers as well. So that's what I mean when I say like these weapons have been designed to work effectively together, but you get Awakened Storm instead. So when jinwoo uses Hailstorm, he gains super armor. When he uses Hailstorm, it doesn't trigger a crit, but it increases the damage now to 200. And instead of losing anything, he just gets a flat 30% attack increase and 5% precision increase. And the attack speed of Stormbringer's attacks increase significantly for an infinite duration. Like, this thing is ridiculous. It's really strong. So deals 30 damage equal to 3200% of the user's attack. Jesus Christ. And then right here, this is it too. Tempest Mark, increased damage taken, fine, but increases wind damage taken by 15 also. My God, right? Stacks up to 2 times for 20 seconds. So this thing is just ridiculous, and it's got a perfect blend of damage and support in there. So like I'm like towing the line here, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to place a lot of the weapons in SS now looking at it. I will put you there. I will put you simply because it doesn't have the same offensive peak, but it's a damn good weapon. It's a damn good weapon, the Foxtail, especially when paired, of course, with the weapon it's designed to be paired with. And it's funny because it's a free weapon. That's the funniest thing about it, is that it's a free weapon. You could argue it could be SS as a free weapon because you get the extra value of being able to have it fully invested in if you wanted to do that, or if you got the opportunity to do that, like you're playing enough and all that stuff, or if you're crafting it, right? So, but yeah, extremely strong. Grants a shield there to increase the cooldown of Prelude. When the user uses Prelude while there are enemies within a 5-meter range, they rush forward. The user's light damage increases by 20% and their attack increases by 12.25 when they have only light weapons equipped. So you get the extra bonuses there. And then Foxtail increases the critical hit rate and damage of the user's light basic skill, stacking up to 1 times. When the user uses a light basic skill, it removes the effect. Stacks up to 9 times, but for an infinite duration. So it's basically a light, almost like a light plum sword, if you will. It's a little bit of a different play style, but again, being a light free-to-play weapon also, like I could argue it being higher, but just for the sake of not putting every goddamn thing there, I'll put it there. The other free-to-play weapons I'm not going to spend much time on. I think they're solid secondary options, but I'll place them there. Moonshadow, I feel like if I put Moonshadow S+, people will be pissed off at me. So I'm going to place it in SS because I do think it's SS quality, and I think it's extremely good, and I think it's worthy of being in SS. But like I've been saying, I don't want every goddamn thing to be SS. The dark combination, like, you don't necessarily need to use these dark weapons all too much, but it's still a really strong pairing, and that's where you really can see Plum's overall damage with the full bloom and stuff. Like, that's when you can see Plum at its best offensively, is when it's paired with Moonshadow. They really were getting it right early on with the idea of pairing a support weapon with a DPS based weapon, but what they wound up doing with Dark is they made two weapons that are great supports. So and then Moon is also just like, it has the utility of the slowdown, it's got that extra damage taken debuff, and it does solid damage too. So what is it with the lunar eclipse or whatever it's called? So easy SS, I think. And it was the first weapon, I think, post anniversary, right? Our first launch, right? Post launch, excuse me. And it immediately shook things up. So the bow. The fire weapons are just extremely technical. You have to really be watching your core attack. You need to have it filled, which is why fire magnifying slashes, or whatever it's called. It's not magnifying, but whatever that overall skill is called, is extremely strong for this pairing too, to just give you that automatic gauge up. And that's also, the full core gauge is nice with the fan, like all that stuff we kind of reviewed with the fan. And then also the fact the fan has a break on it means you don't have to use a fire break skill if you don't want to. But the good news is you have the armor break, which gives the crit damage anyway. So like it's a win-win. So fire is just extremely strong, and I think they're really meta relevant right now, especially for Sung Jinwoo, and it's also really strong in Guild Boss. I'm looking for reasons to place things lower though. The Scythe. I don't think the Scythe is as good as the dagger or the longsword, but I do think it's better than these. The Scythe is a tricky one because early game, it's a really solid weapon. You get 2 copies of it for free also in those challenges, right? I don't know if you get any more, but you get 2. I haven't used it in a while, but I'm pretty sure it can still do okay damage when paired with the Plum Sword. I do wonder about the damage taken debuff now, and I also wonder about the fact that once you to be below 60% of your HP, then heals you up. Like, it's a weird weapon to try to use now. And then you run into the thing where it's like, okay, well, I should just use Moon and Plum, right? Like, that's kind of where you wind up. But it gives you the crit hit rate there when below 70. A flat 25% unrestricted when you're below the threshold anyway. Like, there's no time limit or anything. You just got to be below the threshold, and it makes it easier to get there by increasing your damage taken. And then if you're using like what, curse, it's not hard to get there. And then you have a permanent 25. I just kind of, you know what I wish? Consumes 5% of your HP and increases skill damage. This, it just needs more attack increases. It's just power craft. Like, it has entire passives in here that are just 1 or 2 sentences, and that's I mean, look, that's not how, it's just power crap. Look at how lengthy the newest weapon is. It's just power crap, and it's like indefensible. I can't really talk around it. Like, I want to put it higher, but it's only giving you what, 15% attack increase, and then it's giving you heals, decrease the cooldown, which the skill doesn't do anything in particular. No, it just doesn't airborne. Like, this is a weapon that's value is in the crit, basically. That's all it really has value with today. The skill damage going up with the cooldown going down is good, but I'm just trying to talk myself into it. Like, and some of that's just the reason also why this is better is because it's been reworked. Like, it's been reworked. It's just that simple. And I don't think they've ever touched the Scythe. So there's that. And then again, like I said, with the Scythe, you run into it also with Zeke's Fragment, which we're going to get to eventually, where it's like the Scythe is also not better than Zeke's. I could just tell you by length of text, it's not better than Zeke's, right? But Zeke's is an extremely strong dark weapon that's just kind of screwed because you're probably just better off, right? Like, I think Zeke's is the hardest hitting dark weapon. I'd have to confirm it through tests, of course, but I believe Zeke's is the hardest hitting. And you've got to use it right, of course, like every other weapon. Woo. But I think it's the hardest hitting one. Increases critical hit rate of Zeke's admin by 20%. But like, you're just, again, better off running Moon and Plum. It just is what it is. So like, I don't know what the end game is there really. So let's go back. So I guess we'll just kind of do Zeke's now because it's there. But yeah, I think Zeke's is there, but like, I wanted to talk myself into moving the scythe higher because I know a lot of people use it and like it. Scatty, you're going in A tier as well. Could argue Scatty B. I could argue Scatty B. It's just not great. It's got some stuff. It's fun with the freeze and snap and extra damage. Like it's fun, but no. I could argue some of these free weapons in A, to be honest. So I'm just gonna place it. Huntsman, I think Huntsman is actually super good, but not good enough to be highly played. Like Huntsman is like an A+. I think Huntsman's better than these A's by a decent bit, actually. But I don't know if it's an S tier. But you know what? I will place it in S because of the break. But I do like its core attack, its break, its halt. Like it's a utility weapon. It's weird because it's a utility weapon, and it's okay with the fox tail, but then it's just outclassed by the sheer damage of the quarterstaff. So it's in another similar spot where it's just there's better options, right? But simply on the merit of the break, I'll move it to S, but I think it's more A+. Thetis's Grimoire, I think it's S+, but I'm gonna move it to SS. So two things. I'm moving it to SS1 because it should be better in a water meta as we finally come full circle to a water meta. And two, with a new water DPS weapon to pair with it, which I would expect to, like similarly to the wind stuff, to just work perfectly with it. I assume that is what they're doing. And secondly, it's a support weapon that's got a lot of utility still. You can always throw that as a sub weapon if you want to. You're better off putting Plum or Moon in a lot of cases, but then the unsung third hero is Thetis's Grimoire in those cases. Like if you need to put something there, it's Plum, Moon, Thetis, Grimoire. So like the viability of Thetis is Grimoire. I'm gonna put it in SS. This is a truth spear, right? I never really cared much for it, so I could be biased on that, but I'm gonna place it in A. Honestly, I think it's B, but I'll put it in A just to respect the value of it. This is a truth daggers. I mean, here's the deal. In encore missions specifically that are weak to water, it's gonna be like, it's an S tier weapon in that specific scenario. Assuming you put on what, the Wolf Assassin Blessing Stone, like it's super specific. As a sheer water weapon that loses all of that specific viability in certain game mode, I'll put it there. You could argue it to B just simply because the next water weapon will. The reality is, and if you do that, by the way, you push Scatty to B2. The reality is that you're not going to use this. It's, you know what? I'll leave it in A, and I talk myself into it because you get it in, and it's what you get its limit breaks to A5 for free, right? So like early game, that's good. Okay, so you know what? I almost want to create A+ just to put it there because of the free viability of it. But as a standalone weapon, I don't think it's great. But like I was gonna say, like you're just not gonna use these non-Thetis Grimoire light weapons anymore. Like it's water has been gone for so long that these water weapons are power crept. And Thetis is actually, the fun thing about Thetis is that it actually is power crept too. It's that old. But how do you power out support or power creep out support? Like you're not doing that. Like it doesn't really do all that much. It genuinely doesn't. It doesn't do a damn. It does one thing. Like seriously, it does literally one thing, right? But because it does that one thing so damn well, they have like it's power crept, but it's not. So I just, if you want to argue it to S, that's fine. But like I think it's worth using. So if you don't know what this thing does, the skill has a 100% chance to apply the cold ice effect, which freezes the enemy and interrupts them for 4 seconds. And then when the effect ends, it deals additional damage to the target equal to 10% of their damage taken while they were frozen. Again, it does extra damage after the freezing based on the damage you dealt while they were frozen. That's an insane effect by itself. But as you go on, it gets more effects. Deep erosion now increases elemental weakness damage taken by 24%. So if you're using this versus an enemy that's weak to water, they're going to take much more damage in that period, right? So that's how that works. You're going to do 24% more. You're going to do more water damage there too with the second limit break. And then right here, cold ice, when it ends, increases the user's additional damage to 20%. So this third limit break changes the extra damage from 10% from cold ice to 20%. So they're going to take 20% of the damage they took while frozen. And then it decreases the cooldown, and then the last one increases damage to frozen targets by 50%. So this last one is extremely strong because this means that all the damage you do to an enemy that's frozen is increased by 50%. Its entire gimmick is freeze the enemy, which is strong by itself, and then do as much damage as you can, and then it just does a chunk of HP after that. So like, how do you power creep this thing out? Like you kind of just don't. What you do to power creep it out is you make enemies immune to freeze. Because if you make an enemy immune to freeze, then this is just useless, right? It's just useless. It quite literally has some stuff like water damage up, and you know, it does some little like the deeper. No, actually, that's it, right? Because everything else just doesn't work. So until they do something like that, this weapon can't be crept out. So anyway, the other weapons are just not getting used. Vulcan. Attack increase speed is nice. I think Vulcan is a weapon you could use effectively. You know, fun thing, before I didn't have the fan, not the fan because I wasn't out yet, but I did not have the bow for a while, and I had to beat like the content that was fire restricted when the bow came out, which was like the bestie, whatever she's called, the Ice Witch, not the Shadow version, but that character, her event or her stage or whatever, right? I had to beat that with Vulcan and with Orb of Avarice, and it was terrible trying to do Proof of the Strong and all that stuff. But I got the bow later, but I was able to use Vulcan effectively. That's the point. Vulcan, I think, always was like always listed as one of the worst weapons in this game. Got talked about as being such, but I think it's usable. I think you can for sure use Vulcan. And again, I think a lot of that is because the attack increase is so strong. So there's that with Vulcan. But yeah, where are you at, Vulcan? I don't know if I could argue it any higher though. Like, I think that's about as high as it goes. Concentration effect for every basic attack and core attack that hits the enemy creates a shield equal to 10% of the user's attack. And then right here, Vulcan's Blessing explodes and deals damage equal to 400% of the user's attack, stacking up to 20 times. As your sun gets stronger, your attack goes higher, all that stuff. This is going to get stronger and stronger, this effect specifically. Again, though, you shouldn't be using this weapon over the actual fire weapons, right? That's the argument. Increases attack and attack speed. That's really strong, and it's the first limit break. Those numbers go up. It gets enhanced with the third to 20 and 10. Attack speed going up to 10 is nice. Decrease the cooldown. And then while shield doesn't affect, the damage of fire destruction increases as well. So very strong-ish polearm, but not one I would argue that you should be using. So, but it is one I think you can use. And since I have gone through, and I said initially that I thought those SR weapons are like B or whatever, I'll quickly rank some of the SRs. Not really going to go through because honestly, I don't know what all of them do. They're just so old. But I will grab the three that I mentioned. So Orb of Avarice, I will put there. Radiru Family Bow, I will put there. Actually, I'll put Westwind there too. Cool. That's perfect. That's perfect. Westwind used to be SS, used to be God tier, but they just nerfed it. And I think they quite literally nerfed Westwind, right? I think they quite literally nerfed Westwind. But they've just pummeled it into the ground with such stronger and harder hitting wind weapons. That's part of why the longsword got the buff that it did, was to push Westwind out of the freaking meta. So there's that. But Westwind is still strong. I can argue Westwind or some of these against Huntsman. Huntsman's in a weird spot. It's there because of the break. But yeah, the rest of it I'm pretty comfortable with. All right, guys, hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure that thumbs up and subscribe. And if it wasn't already clear, unless they somehow screw it up, the water weapon is going to be SS as well when that comes out in a couple of weeks. So thank you so much. I'll see you all later for the anniversary content for Solo Leveling Arise. Make sure you support if you haven't already. Link down below in the description. Thank you.